Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game where I was able to finally get a nice sacrifice in, which didn't involve any flashy tactics, but simply a positional bonus. Let's get into it. My opponent starts with the move e4, and I go with c5. Knight to f3, and I decide to play the move d6, which is what I've been playing in these Sicilians recently, and the line that I normally go for is d4, cd4, knight d4, and knight to f6, knight to c3, and g6, which is the dragon variation. And if you know your openings, you know that the dragon has a very common rook sacrifice in it, which might be going on in this video. So yeah, let's just keep going with some chess. F3 is the move my opponent chooses. By the way, the point of the dragon is, of course, to put the bishop on g7, get some active play here. Knight c6, castles, and have a very nice attack when white long castles, which is what normally happens in these positions. F3, my move is very simple. Bishop to g7, we do not have to think here. Bishop to e3, and castles. Queen to d2. And here my opponent is simply trying to go with bishop to h6 to trade off my powerful dark sword bishop, which is normally a very strong piece in these dragon structures, because it's just, without this bishop, I don't really have any attacking play over on this side, since my opponent is never able to never really able to blunt this bishop with a pawn. Like if they were able to play c3 or put a pawn on the d4 square or the e4 square, that'd be great, but they really aren't able to. So the bishop is actually very powerful here, even with all of these minor pieces in the way. And after queen to d2 and bishop to h6, then I would be in some trouble. So what we try to do, we try not to allow that, and we instead play the very simple move, knight to c6, disallowing the move bishop to h6 because of bishop takes h6. And you might say, well, you're attacking the queen, but doesn't this also take a piece and attack a queen? You're right, but this is a check, and we're winning. And of course, the queen is overloaded, so if she takes this, I will be taking on d4, and I'll be up a piece. So that's the point of knight c6, to stop the move bishop to h6, and my opponent goes very aggressive very early on with the move g4. And this is a common idea in these positions. G4 is aggressive, yes. Like you can already see the makings of an attack. He's trying to play h4, h5, defended by the g pawn, open up some files at my king, get in with this, and try to obliterate me, right? That's the point of this. He wants to obliterate me, which is a pretty noble cause, I do admit. And I mess up. I mess up seriously here. I forget what I'm supposed to do, and I play the wrong move simply because I thought, okay, well, I know this from like some old theory, so I think this is probably correct. I end up playing the move h5, which on the surface is an okay move. The point is that after the move g5, I can play knight to d7, and my knight's coming to this square or this square, and actually it's a pretty decent knight. Of course, a serious blunder would be to put the knight on h7. See, because this is just kind of locking the knight down. I would have to go here, here, and here to bring the knight out, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it gives white an opportunity to go with this, say rook e8, and let's say something like f4, and already, oh man, f4 is actually not that good, I guess. No, long castles first, and then knight f8, and then f4, or what are we doing? No, I just going for activity. Okay, well, either way, I don't know anything about chess. G5 would have been a nice move here to kind of blunt me over here, but my opponent decides to instead play the move g takes h5. By the way, the move that I should have played instead of h5 is to realize, and I did realize this during the game, that when my opponent doesn't play bishop c4, which is a very common move in these structures, I knew I had this idea, but I didn't really know exactly what the idea was. The move that I have to play here is bishop to e6, which is a very powerful move. And after knight takes e6, f takes e6, bishop c4, long castles, either one. Let's say bishop c4 because it makes the most sense. d5, take, take knight takes d5. Oh, I didn't even realize this. And knight e5. Oh, okay, so we're getting some real tactics here. Yeah, this is very complicated. It feels like he can win a pawn. This is actually really bad for him. Oh, right, because he's just getting butchered over here. Yeah, rook 88 sees black with the decisive advantage. Yeah, in either case, bishop to e6 would have been the best move to stop this, and the idea is to eventually play for d5. And I knew that, but I knew the idea was d5, but I didn't know exactly how I was supposed to prepare that, so I was only looking at d5 now, which I knew was wrong because I just thought, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense. He can just play g5, whereas my knight going probably to h5, and then he wins a pawn. Actually, he has to win a pawn like this, because if the knight takes, then I have pressure on this. So he has to win the pawn like that. But in either case, I knew this was wrong, so I ended up playing h5, which makes sense. Either way, my opponent goes g takes h5, which is an okay move. I recapture with the knight, and even though the position is plus 0.5, it's actually a very difficult position to play for white. Black has very, very powerful attacks here, and this is kind of the fun part about the dragon. Long castles. I go with bishop to d7, which I thought made sense. Just putting my bishop on a diagonal. The next idea is rook to c8, and doing good. Actually here, one of my moves is queen to a5. Going for this, like controlling this entire rank, and also putting some pressure in here, also putting some pressure in here if I can ever draw arrows. But yeah, queen a5 would have been very, very nice. I didn't see this move, as I played bishop to e7, bishop to c4, and I played knight to e5. Pretty common stuff. I'm just putting my pieces on the squares that they normally are supposed to be in this position. This is kind of how you're supposed to set up here. You're supposed to put knight here, take with the knight when he goes with this, bishop on d7. If we can put the bishop on e6, but I didn't really know this idea until after this game. So bishop on d7, and we bring the rook to c8, and we start some sort of attack. And even though position is objectively lost, if you're an engine, this is difficult. This is difficult to play. Bishop to e2. I go rook to c8 pretty quickly, because what else are you going to do, right? And I was a little bit worried here about the move f4, because if I'm looking at this accurately, it seems like my opponent is getting a lot of play. Of course, I cannot allow this. That move would be death to my position, because I would open up my king, and I do not have an attack anymore. I was thinking knight to c4, going for an attack of these two pieces. After takes, I wasn't really too sure about how to evaluate the position after the move f5. I was sure I was worse. Of course, you're always worse than the dragon, but it's still complicated. Like, for example, you have queen to a5, you can double up the rooks, and like you have some pressure, right? So in any case, luckily for me, he didn't play that, and he played a pretty bad mistake, because it allows me to do what I'm supposed to do. Bishop to h6. And this is not correct. This is simply not correct. This is a sign of my opponent who doesn't really know the main ideas of the dragon position. And bishop to h6, where looks on the surface like it's a good move, right? You're going to trade off my powerful dark sword bishop, which is like the pride and joy of the dragon. Yes, of course, right? That would make lots of sense. Very logical move. Very logical move. But in fact, this allows me to do something pretty cool. And I realize in this position that I can do one of the main ideas of the dragon. I can go bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, and then I'm just going to sack the rook. Why? No reason. That's kind of how we're supposed to play here. No reason. We just sack the rook. He takes with the pawn. You go queen to a5. And I evaluated that position as probably pretty decent for me, because these pawns are all super weak. If you go king here, I thought I could maybe even like, what did I think here? I thought maybe we could, after king there, maybe I could like play just another rook to c8 and try to like bring up some more material, maybe. It genuinely, like, yeah, rook to c8 and like try to bring the knight in. This is kind of my main idea. But it genuinely just is just not that good. And that's what I go for. Bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, and I don't even calculate anything. Rook takes e3. Brilliancy. And now we are just better. We're basically better. It's very difficult for my opponent to play. B takes c3. Like I said, I'm going to play the move queen a5, so I play queen a5. The only move in the position, and black is very, very slightly better. And it's a very difficult position to play. f4 is the move chosen, and here, the one mistake of the game happens. I missed a tactic. I thought after f4, I would simply play knight to g4, and I would be better. I would be like pretty decently better. But I missed something pretty dastardly. After knight to g4, which I play in the game, queen to g5 is bad because of basically anything. First of all, take here is very powerful for me, because after all the trades, I'm going to be able to get my exchange back, and then look at this pawn structure, right? Then I'm just going to be in a better position, in a better endgame, and I'm probably going to win the game. So I was like, okay, well, you can't go queen to g5, so what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to take my knight, because if you don't go queen to g5, then your queen is trapped. But I miss that in this position, after takes, I'm losing. I'm completely lost. After one move here, I will have lost this game. And it's a tricky move to find, but it actually just makes a lot of sense. I'm attacking this pawn, so we defend it. And in this position, I didn't think that this was that bad from afar, but up close, this is awful. This is terrible. Like, Black doesn't have a move. What do I do? What's the plan here? I don't have any play. I can take on a2. I mean, okay, we're gonna go king to d2. The attack is coming. F4, f5, for example, right? So what am I supposed to do? Fortunately for me, that didn't happen. Rook d to g1 is the move played, and immediately gives me a good advantage. But what was I supposed to do there? How do I get everything working if when I move the knight, he's just gonna take my knight? Like, for example, if I move the knight, he's just gonna like take here. I'm gonna take back with the queen. He's gonna take, and like this position is just completely lost. And if I don't take back with the queen, if I take back with the pawn, like I get mated, like this. Like, come on, this is game over. Or what are we doing? Bishop g4, h3 at the very least, probably more. Oh yeah, knight f5 is just GG's. I have to sack my queen. In any case, that makes it a little bit difficult. So what do? How is this position advantage for Black? Well, it's advantage due to a pretty nice tactic. It's advantage due to the move queen takes c3. Difficult to find. I'm able to find an idea like it later, but this is difficult based on like my experience of sacking the rook in these positions, which is literally none. I just knew that the idea existed at the time. Queen takes c3. Actually, I think I might have done it once, but again, very low to none. Queen takes c3 is a nice move because after this is game over. Knight c4, he gets mated, and at the very least, like if he takes my knight, which it makes sense, I have queen a1 here, and then I take with check. And this is the point. King to e1, queen takes e4. The bishop is pinned, and if you go back like this, then I have like queen to c3, and I have rook here on the way. Actually, queen to c3 and even like bishop here on the way. Can't take this because bishop a4 is already a checkmate, right? Queen to a1 is mate. Which is nice, which is very nice. But unfortunately, I didn't see that. Queen takes c3 would be a very nice move. The only move is king to b1, and then I go knight c6. I'm sorry, that is the f6 square. Knight c6 is the right square, and I'm just doing this, and like it looks like he just wins, but I win first, which is nice. which is pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I like that. In either case, that doesn't happen. Knight g4 takes, and no rook d3. Rook d to g1, and Black is winning in this position because I'm able to sacrifice again with the move that I briefly mentioned earlier. Well, not briefly, pretty much most of this video has been going over this move. I find it. Queen takes c3. And yeah, now it's over. Now it's basically over here. One little thing to note. After my opponent ends up taking on g4, and the point here, of course, is it's queen to a1 here, and I'm able to pick up the rook, right? I'm able to just grab this guy. No, we don't pick up the rook here. No. If we pick up the rook, we lose. We lose in easy fashion. queen takes h5. I have no more checks here. In fact, my queen is a little bit stuck, and the next move is knight here. This is not looking good. In fact, no, he has to take an h5. Yeah, this is not good. This is not good. If I take the rook and just argue, okay, I'm up a rook, but no, I do not go for the extra material. I simply have the move queen takes on d4 with check now, which is the point of this. If I just took the knight, then it would be the same thing. Queen takes h5, but now instead of the other line, I am able to get a perpetualization here, king to d2 here. If he ever runs out this way, it will just grabs a couple pawns and rook c8, and just to get a nice perpetualization since I'm defending this in all lines. And for example, this move doesn't work, like this check, right? He gets mated. So instead of all that, queen a1 here. I take on d4. My opponent goes king back to c1. I go queen a1 again, and I just decide, okay, well, now's the perfect time. I'm gonna grab this rook. I don't really know why he went back. I thought this move made more sense, but at the end of the day, I'm actually just able to pick it up anyway, which is pretty funny. Pretty funny little concept there. I think I saw this during the game. I'm not sure. I was gonna play that move anyway, even if it wasn't a fork, but whatever. In either case, I'm able to pick up the rook, and in this position, after queen takes h5, which of course I cannot take back to due to the pin on my king, it looks like this position is a little bit rough. He's gonna go here. He's gonna try and open up my king. He's threatening this move, for example. Well, he's not threatening that move because it loses a queen, but like, for example, if he's able to get that move like here and then here, then I mean I would be losing, yes, but luckily for me, I know what I'm doing, and I don't have to do anything like that. Queen takes e4, f5, and instead of doing anything, what the engine tells me to do, f5 is a very nice move, by the way. I cannot take. Queen takes f5 is winning, and if I do nothing, then, sorry, not there. How do I do nothing here? Here. If I do nothing, then I get mated, right? So after f5, I decide, you know what? We can win this game properly with like queen to d5 and then king to g7, or we can win it. Actually, does this work here? King to g7? Nope. f6. Okay. How do I win? How do I win here? Oh, I just go with a massive attack. I go rook c8, and there's nothing he can do. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Instead of that f5, I decide. Why do we have to do anything like that? I see a winning endgame. I know a winning endgame when I see one. I have a nice way to simplify things down. Queen to d4 check. And that hangs a queen. That hangs a queen in one move. But that's the move I wanted to play. After king to c1, what I thought was going to happen was I was going to play the move queen e3 or queen a1. I was originally going to play queen a1. I'm not sure. I probably would have found this move, queen e3. This move makes a lot more sense, except for king d1, queen f3, king to c1, and like now rook to c8 or something. No, come on. Can we get this going? Queen f1 here and like queen f2 here, and then rook to c8. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Now it's working. But yeah, that doesn't really address the elephant in the room. What happens if he takes my queen? Well, if he takes my queen, which I looked at in the game, it looks like he's almost able to draw the endgame, but he's not. Rook takes queen. Now his rook stops defending his queen, because his rook was putting this pawn, which was attacking his queen, so now I'm able to grab the queen. And I'm up 2 pawns in this endgame. I'm just up 2 pawns. There's not much he can do. He can win 1, rook h4, but I calculated here from a distance pretty quickly that I was just going to be winning this endgame because king to g7, rook takes, and king to f6. This pawn is falling no matter what, and at the end of the day, this pawn is also going to be pretty much lost. Like, I'm going to be able to trade off like a pawn for that pawn at some point, even without the rooks on the board, because like the king getting over here, the king is always going to body him into submission, simply because that's how these pawns on the very outskirts of the board go. There's nothing he can do, because whenever he is going to move his rook, I'm going to be able to take this pawn, and he cannot hold on to this pawn for long. king to d3. I simply go rook to g8. I take the file, and it's over. h4, rook to g4. I just have to demonstrate some technique. King to e3. I keep the king cut off. Rook a4. I decide to pick up the pawn now since he's rook moved. And after this, I decide, well, I don't have to lose any pawns, so I'm not going to. No, I calculate something else. Sorry. Yeah, I calculate this. I get rid of his h pawn. First of all, sorry, I don't know how I forgot that. Rook takes h4, rook to b7, and I calculate here that I'm just able to keep all of my pawns. He's not able to win any of them. Rook to e4, and the move a5, and I'm able to keep my 2-pawn advantage. Even if I kept the 1-pawn advantage here, I would probably still be winning, as long as I don't lose this pawn. This pawn is very important. I can lose this pawn, but I need my connected pawns here. Yeah, a5, he gives me this check. I go rook to e5, and it's over. There's nothing he can do. Even if he didn't have 11 seconds at this point, it's just GG's. Takes, here. And my opponent resigns. 5 seconds on the clock because, well, I'm just going to promote. I have 3 connected pawns here. These pawns are isolated, so they're going to be able to be picked up by my king. I could probably even go here. This is like completely winning too. He can win whatever he wants. But he's never able to pick up this pawn since this pawn goes. And if he's not able to do that, then this pawn is just lost. So that's how I won this game, which is pretty cool. Either way, that's all I've got for you today. If you guys enjoyed, hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, do the normal these YouTubers tell you to do. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.